All right, welcome to this week's edition of the Designated Players Podcast. We are four today on the panel. We've got Alexi, we got Javier, we got Noah, we got Ronnie from Mount Royal Soccer on SB Nation, and today we're going to be covering a whole bunch of different topics about local football team Montreal Impact, as well as what's going around in the football world around the world. Did you guys watch the Jays? Anybody watch the Jays? I don't know how many baseball fans we got.
Huge fan here.
Yeah, huge fan, Javier. Me too. I was in Toronto. I got a chance to watch it with a whole bunch of Torontonians. I love baseball. I love meaningful October baseball.
Especially playoff baseball.
Yeah. Javier, are you like baseball fan, or is this like soccer above baseball?
Soccer is definitely above baseball, but little known fact about myself, I grew up in Ontario when I was a kid. So, I mean, I watched a lot of Blue Jays games at the Rogers Centre, or as it was when I was a kid, the Sky Dome. And grew up a fan of Toronto. And the regular season is tough. 162 games, I think it is a big burden to try to watch every game. But if there's a game, there's nothing else on, I for sure turn it on. But like you said, playoff baseball, whole different story. If it's on, I'm watching.
Yeah, I adore it. I've had so much fun. So I've had friends that went to the games went to the wild card game. Which honestly, what do you think about a wild card game? Okay, the MLS is never going to have anything close to this. It is already as difficult enough as it is for a baseball team to make it into the playoffs. A baseball team to play a wild card game home and you get to go see it. Think about how rare that is in the history of baseball, since it's only been going on for like 10 years. Anyways, I had a great weekend in Toronto doing that. But what the hell's going on in soccer? Okay, what we're going to do is actually, I forgot to mention, this week's podcast is brought to you by two things. This is rum and Coke. A Kraken and Coke, and a tub of peanut butter, which, why not? I didn't get a chance to eat before we started this, so peanut butter. So enjoy it at home. And we're going to jump into what we call sort of the round table. We're going to go around talking about the different storylines from the different leagues. We're going to see what's going on in the EPL and La Liga and the Bundesliga. And we're going to talk a bit about some of the international friendlies that have been going on during this break as well. So how about we start off with La Liga? Yeah, Javier, what did you see this past week or 2 weeks?
Well, this past week, as you all know, was the international break for national teams to play. So there was nothing going on this past weekend. But 2 weekends ago, which we did not get to cover yet, there was some interesting stuff happening. And I know first thing Matt's going to tell me is going to go, whoa, was it another classic La Liga weekend where everyone beat up on everybody?
Do you want me to say that?
Tell you.
You want me to say that? Or?
Give me up.
Okay. Let me guess. Barcelona and Real Madrid won.
And let me tell you something. For the second straight week, that didn't happen.
Oh, that's amazing.
Everything's changing in La Liga. I don't get it. No one gets it. You can keep trying to get it. Doesn't happen. We'll talk about the big three, of course. Real Madrid tied Eibar at home 1-1, which makes no sense. Barcelona lost at home to Celta Vigo 4-3 on an own goal, which still makes no sense to me. And then the one that does actually make sense, Atletico Madrid beats Valencia 2-0. More importantly for our listeners, I'm sure they're dying to know how team of the podcast, Las Palmas, did. Well, they got a draw at home, 2-2. It was okay. Nothing crazy.
It's a result.
It's a result.
Not bad.
Not terrible. But at the end of the day, it relieves the La Liga standings, reading with Atleti and Real tied at the top at 15 points, with Sevilla in third at 14 with 14 points, and then Barcelona bringing up the rear in fourth with 13 points. So it's fairly tight. A lot of things can really happen depending on the next coming weeks and throughout the rest of the season. This coming weekend, in terms of games to watch, I mean, this weekend is really shaping up to look like a classic La Liga weekend where just all the big teams beat up on everybody, because it looks like you have the lower ranked teams playing the Barcelonas, the Real Madrids, and Atleti. So probably won't be too exciting, but hey, hopefully I can come back next week and report to you and say some like Alaves beat Real Madrid. Let's keep our fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Absolutely, fingers crossed. Why don't we? I'll do some coverage of the Bundesliga really quick. Well, actually, first of all, did any of you guys catch any of the La Liga games? Probably nobody but Javier. Nah.
No.
No, we were all busy. We all have lives. Sorry, Javier.
It's okay.
In the Bundesliga, of course, as Javier said, it was off weekend. So I'm going back 2 weekends now to some of the games that took place on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It was actually really interesting. I keep going back to this in my recaps, but the Bundesliga this year is a little weird. Typically by this time you'll have, I don't know, anywhere between a 6-point to even 10-point gap at the top, and then that just keeps getting padded throughout the year by Bayern or Dortmund, and then they duel it out in the last several weeks. What I've been seeing so far is, first of all, Dortmund lost to Bayer 2-0.
Wow.
Bayern tied to FC Köln, 1-1 and Berlin won again against Hamburg. So you end up having now a bit more of a condensed table with Bayern with 16, standard. Then you have Berlin 13, Dortmund 12, Cologne 12, Leipzig 12, Bayer 10, Hoffenheim 10, Eintracht 10, Mönchengladbach 10. It's kind of ridiculous. This top 10 is super tight. Everybody, and goals are being scored as well. We have goals for in the top 10, all above 10, and goals against 10 or under. So it's an exciting season so far in the Bundesliga. Not a whole lot of storylines aside from that, but lots of games to potentially look forward to. Actually, let me look at the next week. Let's see what's coming up in October. Oh, right. Oh, no, that's last week. Okay, week 7. This is actually probably the one that you want to circle on your calendars if you want to follow some German soccer. Friday, 2:30 p.m., Dortmund is playing Berlin. So that's right there, the second and third position playing against each other, very, very tight. Eintracht and Bayern, I mean, Bayern obviously is probably going to win that one, but Eintracht, like I said, is typically a bottom feeder that's been playing really well this season. And as for that, you got a couple other little, mediocre matches, but those would be the ones to look out for me.
Who would you say is your underachiever and overachiever in
in the Bundesliga?
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. Seeing Berlin play this well when they haven't had a significant amount of success in probably 30 years is a really exciting thing to see. I'm a fan. Also, I particularly I used to own a whole bunch of their scarves and jerseys just because I had family that went there. But Eintracht. I don't know where this team came from. They are, like I said, perennial bottom feeders, and they're right up there. If they can stay in it, they're basically going to be like the Bundesliga's version of Everton or something like that, And probably Bayer. Bayer's been playing super exciting, and you have Chicharito that's playing his ass off, and now he's over 100 goals. I think it was the 100th goal that he scored that weekend. So it was pretty yeah.
Wow. Like 100 Bundesliga or 100 just overall in his career
Overall in his career.
Not bad.
Yeah, it's not a milestone to hit. What about what are we doing now? We're doing EPL. This is the exciting part. Noah, kick us off.
I got to think back. It was a long time ago, a couple weeks ago, but one team had a pretty good week. I don't remember their name rhymes with Blurs. I can't remember what they're called.
Come on.
Tottenham, right? Yeah, Tottenham had a decent week.
Right.
They beat the unbreakable Man City, who looked unstoppable.
Some team called Man City. I don't know. I've never heard of these guys before.
Yeah, men.
That's a joke now, but 5 years ago, that joke stands, and it's not a joke. You had no idea who Man City was 5 years ago. But anyways, continue.
It is true. But, Man City have actually had money for a while, but now they have real money. But anyways, back to the game. Spurs looked excellent. They played really well defensively, and when they got their chances, they scored. So they won 2-0 in that game, and now they are only a point behind Man City in the standings. And the standings are really tight at the moment. It looks like about all the contenders are separated by about 5 points. You have Man City, who are currently in first, 18, then Tottenham with 17. My Arsenal right behind with 16, Liverpool 16. And then Everton, United, and Chelsea just behind 14 and 13. So, yeah, it's a really nice start to this season. Everyone's in it, and I'm looking forward to the coming weeks. A couple weeks ago, United is still sort of struggling to find their groove. They drew against Stoke 1-1. The interesting news there is that Mourinho seems to be not happy with Rooney. And now it looks like now that Rooney's not playing for United as much, the national team in England isn't really selecting him as much to play, and it seems like this could be finally, the downturn in his career. So
Well, I think it was just announced today too that he's left off of the roster for their upcoming friendly, right?
Oh, well, I don't know about friendly, but there was a game today. I don't think he played. They played World Cup qualifier today.
Oh yes, yeah. Sorry, not a friendly. It was a qualifier. You're right. Yeah.
The result was
how old is Wayne Rooney now?
31.
Okay, thanks.
But yeah, most of the fans, most of the pundits, all say he just doesn't fit. Just not as good as he used to be. So it's it's finally happening.
Just so you know, no, it was a 0-0 draw against Slovenia today.
0-0. So yeah, I heard the game was quite boring. So I think someone even mentioned on Twitter that the Canada-Morocco game was more exciting, which doesn't say a lot because Canada fell 4-0 to Morocco. So
if I can tell you about how boring it was, the headline on a lot of these articles mentioned that Joe Hart's heroics rescued a point for England. So if Joe Hart is rescuing points for the team,
it's a bad sign.
It's a special day. Special day.
Let me just quickly go over the other results. Chelsea beat Hull 3-0, which is not exactly a surprising result since Hull really have sort of fallen off the map the last few weeks. Liverpool kept their form going. They beat Swansea 2-1, and Everton drew Crystal Palace 1-1. So those are your top teams. Arsenal, oh yeah, the Arsenal barely escaped with 3 points against Burnley. Not a very good result. They won in like the 94th minute on a fluky handball goal by Laurent Koscielny. But hey, I'll take it. And yeah, so. I'll just quickly talk about the relegation battle. It's kind of interesting. Sure. The bottom feeders right now are not your usual suspects. You have West Ham, who had a great season right now, with 4 points from 7 games. Stoke City has 3 points from 7, and Sunderland, who are usually down below, are in last with 2 points. So right now, it's kind of interesting. I'm not really sure how it's going to all unfold, but personally, I think West Ham will eventually get out of the cellar, and I think we're going to see Hull City and probably one of Burnley and Middlesbrough, the newly promoted teams, fall down into that relegation territory.
I got to think that, Swansea didn't play that badly against Liverpool that weekend, for example. I'd like to see Swansea sort of climb out of that hole, but take a look at the reigning champions, the Foxes in Leicester City. They're sitting in 12th.
That actually is kind of par for the course right now. They had a slow start, and they've been back on track lately. So everyone, a lot of pundits kind of unanimous kind of thought on Leicester this year was going to be somewhere between 6th and 9th. So I have a feeling that's kind of what's going to happen.
I think Champions League is going to kill them. They can't compete in both leagues.
Yeah. Well, it's a great thing for them, but it's gonna make it very difficult to compete as well as they did. Look at Liverpool this year. That's one team I don't believe they are in. I don't believe they're in Europa even. So they could have a real clear run. Chelsea as well, or is it Chelsea? I'm thinking no, it's Chelsea who have no Europa. Mm-hmm. So they'll have the healthiest schedule probably throughout the season, so they could be helped by that.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Ronnie.
Well, I was going to say, furthermore, I don't see Stoke or West Ham going down. They're not getting relegated. I think both teams will be like top 10 by the end of the season.
Yeah, they have too much quality to get to.
Yeah, but probably the sample size right now is a bit small, and most of these things are probably going to even out as the season goes on. I would assume. But how about we look ahead to this coming weekend? We've got a couple of interesting matches, especially on Monday.
Oh, yeah.
Monday, I know my friend Marisa and Ash are looking forward to this one. Liverpool versus Man United on Monday at 3 p.m. And otherwise, we do have the reigning champions facing Chelsea, which could be interesting on Saturday morning. Arsenal versus Swansea, they could pick up some points there fairly easily, and by points I mean Arsenal. Otherwise, anything else that stands out for you guys?
Man City Everton looks like a pretty good game. Although Everton have a few injuries, but Everton have been in good form this year. They have Southampton's coach from last year, Ronald Koeman, who's made it different. A lot of players are they're feeling his vibe. It's been working a lot better. They're much better defensively. I don't know if anyone recalls, but last year Everton blew so many points on late goals against last year. They really had a bad defensive record last year, so they're much more organized this year, and they have just as much firepower. So, yeah, that I think Everton City will be a pretty decent game.
Are there any other games you guys are looking forward to, Alexi or Javier?
Not really. Well, obviously the Spurs game versus I think they're playing.
Is it West Ham?
No, not West Ham. It's
Brom.
West Brom.
Yeah.
Brom. You're right. Yeah.
another team, but
I mean, for me, the EPL, my go-to Saturday morning move is to just check out TSN and Sportsnet, see if there's anything interesting on in the EPL, and if there is, I watch it. No vested rooting interest.
Yeah.
My usual complaint with EPL is this. I think this Spurs game is going to be on TSN. But for example, Spurs Man City, I couldn't find it on TSN, which was absolutely an amazing game, even before it started, just the matchup.
You got to get sports now, Lexi.
Also, guys, just to throw one more league into the mix, Serie A, Napoli-Roma on Saturday.
Yeah.
That should be awesome.
Oh, that should be a good one. Yeah, you guys can head down to Cafe Olimpico and watch that.
That's right.
Just as an extra point on the EPL roundup here, I read this morning, and I've just opened up the article once again. There was a write-up in The Guardian about Everton's Oumar Niasse, who I don't know if you remember, but he was picked up last year, I think in January.
Valencia,
I'm sorry?
Enter Valencia, you mean?
No.
No?
No,
because it's one story there. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's a new story, and anyways, he was picked up from CSKA Moscow. He had, I believe it was something like 12 goals and 8 assists in 20 games. He was lighting it up. He was picked up by Everton, £13.5 million. He was expected to be their number one backup to Lukaku, and everything looked great, except for the fact that he had taken a couple of months off because Russia, the Russian league, has a winter break. So it took him a little bit of time to get into form, nothing to panic about. And then, of course, Everton fires their coach. They bring up, who did they replace Martinez with? Ronald Koeman. And what does he say? He sits him down after playing him only for 45 minutes in the preseason and says, look, you're not part of my plan anymore. He's removed him from the roster, and he's now playing with the under-23s. Now, the reason for this is that Niasse refused to be allowed to be transferred before the transfer deadline a few weeks ago. So you now have this interesting situation where you have a player that is begging to play for Everton, but Everton doesn't want him, and they can't move him. So he's being paid almost to do nothing. Anyways, there's a great write-up in The Guardian where it's an interview with the player himself. He isn't being treated particularly fairly, to be honest. There's some of these things sound a little backhanded, like they haven't given him a locker at the under-23 games, for example. They took his number away from the first team to give it to somebody else. That's somewhat understandable, but still. Anyways, there's a bit of wishy-washy stuff on both sides. It's a good write-up. It's nice to hear about some of these more complicated transfer stories that we don't often get to hear about.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that can happen, I suppose, when a new coach comes in. I just remember when Mourinho took over at Chelsea. We took over at Chelsea a couple of years ago. I think it was Juan Mata had just come off. He basically had won the Player of the Year or second best Player of the year before, and he just barely played all the entire next year because Mourinho had showed up and they just didn't get along at all. And it was just I don't want you. Basically, was kind of what Mourinho told him. So it's that's I think that kind of thing sort of just happens more in Europe. It's not the kind of thing that would happen in the MLS. I don't think, where suddenly a new coach comes in, he's like, no, Piatti, sorry, not going to work out. I think there's a different dynamic here. It's almost like the players are more important than coaches. Almost.
Yeah, the challenge with teams like Everton and I would say middle to bottom of the pack teams, they don't have the money power to pick up a guy and have him fail, and then they just sort of loan him out or something like that and have to keep him on the books. They can't. So what they end up doing is they say, look, you don't fit in our system, or you're not playing particularly well, what have you. We have to sell you off so that we can get a replacement. They can't, preemptively get a replacement, loan a guy off, and still pay both salaries. So
Everton can, but most teams can't.
Well, even Everton is they're closer to.
They're but they are, as you said, they sent him to under 23. They have a guy who's they spent 13 million pounds on. So yeah, they're like a perennial 7th, 8th team. Yeah. If this was like Middlesbrough or if this was like West Brom, they would have had to have like sold them to make the money back to buy somebody else, for sure. Yeah. But just a quick thing. So I thought you were going to talk about Enner Valencia. I don't know if you guys heard this story, but he is now the backup striker for Everton, and he went on international duty in Ecuador, and he had a game. I can't remember exactly what. I think it was in Colombia, and somewhere in the game he goes off injured, and well, apparently he feigned injury so that he could get out of the game, so he could escape being arrested in Colombia. So yeah, he's injured on the ground. They take him off on a stretcher. He goes to a hospital, and then he leaves the country. You guys didn't hear about this?
Sorry, go ahead, Ronnie.
Ronnie?
Oh, we just got some really bad feedback.
Oh, yeah, I got a bit of an echo. Yeah. Okay, Ronnie, you want to tell me what did you read about the Valencia situation?
Yeah, so apparently this guy just hadn't paid his child support and was trying to get away from the cops. Somebody had tipped him off that he'd be getting a visit after the game. So, yeah, pretty interesting scenario there.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there was a couple other details that came out too. Supposedly something along the lines of the team finding out that the police were going to arrest him before the game started. And so some of the players seemingly colluded to try and figure out a plan so that he wouldn't get arrested at the game. And it's fascinating. When you watch that footage, I just find it hilarious because around the pitch, you have a track, like an Olympic running track. And so when he gets onto the golf cart with his injury, you have all the police that are running down this Olympic racetrack after the golf cart. It's fascinating stuff.
I gotta see this, man.
Yeah. Well, anyways, that was a good transition to some international play. We wanted to talk a bit about the Canadian men's national team. We had 2 games so far this week, one that ended just a few hours ago. So we beat Mauritania 4-0, which was a fantastic display by the men's national team, with a handful of changes in the roster that I'm sure Noah's going to take care of in a second. But I'll just mention that today we lost 4-0 against Morocco, with, correct me if I'm wrong, a relatively similar lineup as what we saw against Mauritania. But, well, ish. I think we saw Edgar in the lineup as well, right?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure where Edgar had played against Mauritania, but he did not play center back against Mauritania. He played center back today against Morocco. There was quite a few fractions, strange ones, actually. It seemed as though they sent Hoylett and Arfield home after the Mauritania game because they were not there today. It was a pretty sparse lineup today, so the results, I would take both results with a grain of salt. Just watching Mauritania play, yes, they were ranked ahead of us in FIFA rankings, but they looked abysmal. Like they had no real shape to their formation at all. It just seemed like they were always out of position. So, no offense to Toss St. Ricketts, but when he scores 2 goals in a game, it's because he's playing like St. Lucia or, some like backwater Caribbean country. So after that game ended, I knew it was like, okay, I'm really happy we beat someone ranked ahead of us, but, let's just see what happens next game. And although today there was a few things I was impressed by today, I thought they were moving the ball quite quicker. They had a lot more intensity trying to win the ball back.
And when you say today, you mean against Morocco?
Against Morocco, sorry. So there was things that I enjoyed, but Morocco just had quality. You can see that they were just zipping the ball around, and they had a number of guys who had a lot of skill in the ball, and it after a while it just sort of added up. And there was a couple of really sort of brain dead defensive errors by Canada that led to 2 penalties. one by Edgar, who kind of elbowed a guy really for no reason in the box that led to a penalty, and then Mandraker James, I'm pronouncing that right?
Yeah.
He was playing center back as well, and he just made a real mess of a play in the box where he decided to play a ball instead of letting the goalie get it, and then he passed it right to a Moroccan player and then tackled him. So it was just really, that was the third and fourth goal. No, that was the second and fourth goal, those two penalties. But going into the second half, they were down a goal, and they still had decent possession. They didn't look horrible, but it is 4-0.
Yeah. So. And Ronnie, what were you going to join in with? What did you see today?
Oh, I just would have loved to see the lineups switched. Thursday's lineup versus Morocco.
Exactly.
I think would have been a huge difference. Yeah, just having Hoyle in there, Arfield, could have been interesting. I'd love to see a little more of Henry and Vittoria at the back as well as center backs. That could be interesting, but nothing against Edgar and James. Definitely the future. I think like Henry and James going forward, I think we're pretty solid center backs.
Yeah, I actually kind of like James. I mean, besides the, I understand, you don't want to jump to conclusions on one really bad play, but he has a lot of composure in and around the box. He's pretty decent in the air, and he doesn't panic when he has to deal with a ball at his feet in the box. No, he has some decent qualities that I wouldn't mind seeing more of, and Henry as well. And I guess I can kind of see why they hadn't played Edgar at center back for a while. I think he's kind of getting a little bit past his prime, maybe, or it's just not his best position because he didn't look very good today. But yeah, in attack, they didn't really have a lot of options today. And like Ronnie said, I would have liked to have seen some more help in midfield to move the ball forward. And with Piet, Osorio looked pretty decent, and I'm happy for Osorio that he's had 2 starts in a row. That just shows, I think, that the interim coach, he wants the young guys to play a bit more. Fraser Aird played fullback, and he looked okay. So, but yeah, it was a very depleted lineup.
Well, I mean, as much as you did say, that their performance today was lackluster, or at least, I mean, partially lackluster with a handful of mistakes thrown in. I'm getting a win against a team like Mauritania, who is ahead of us in the rankings. It's these little chipping away, kind of games that are important to get some points in. But on that note, you mentioned the interim coach, Michael Finley, who we've covered now for a couple of weeks, and that new process of who they're going to hire and things like that. Alexi, you said you came across some information about some names that have been thrown around recently. What did you see?
It was an article posted on MLS. It didn't seem anything. Didn't seem to be any rumors. It just seemed to be someone proposing a few names.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing too serious, really. Some of the names floated around that he proposed. One was Finley, just keeping on and losing the interim title.
Mm-hmm.
He also mentioned Michael Bradley's father, who went to Swansea, so that's obviously no longer an option. And I don't remember all the names. I think one was also Jesse Marsch, the current New York Red Bulls head coach, and I find that unlikely because he's having quite a good run in New York. And I think he also mentioned the U23 coach. And this is something we talked about a bit, about bringing up a coach. So it could be an interesting option, becoming a progression. It's not a name I recognize because Canada's U23 coach isn't exactly an international celebrity, but he knows the players, so it could be interesting, especially for youth development.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's most likely that is probably just, click fodder from MLS by being able to throw in some American names and some MLS coaches' names into an article. But it's a good sign that at least the names that are coming up are quality. And this idea of the U23 coach, that's also something that we've been talking about, is making sure that we get somebody in that position that has followed some of these players throughout their early adult careers and can get to know them, potentially to get to know their qualities and strengths a lot better, and potentially their weaknesses. Anybody else, did you guys want to add anything onto the Canadian men's national team before we jump into the MLS?
No, not really. You guys are so much better versed in the Canadian men's national team than I am. I think I've said it before in previous episodes of the podcast. To me, the team is in disarray. I really, really, really don't want to spend my time watching a team in such a disarray for now. But like you guys, the way you guys sound like there's going to be some sort of hope coming, and maybe I'll be back on that bandwagon soon enough.
Yeah, well, definitely there are these little sort of small evidences of some change. Seeing some players that are playing their proper and things like that. So we'll see what comes up next. Actually, just before I jump to the MLS, Noah, do you know when's the next friendly? Do you know when that's coming up?
Can't be close by.
No, but
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I wonder who they're playing.
It may not even be out yet, like who they're playing.
I think I saw friendly in November versus South Korea, but I'm not sure about that.
Ooh, already, eh? Oh, that makes sense because there is. Because I guess international friendlies happen at the same time as the World Cup qualifiers, so that is happening in November. So
yeah, I see right here, November 11th, Canada, South Korea at 6 a.m. So I'm assuming that's being played.
We're gonna get absolutely destroyed, aren't we?
That'll be a very big challenge.
I'm liking this though. We got to play the better teams to move forward.
Yeah, I totally agree.
There's
a difference between playing a team that's a bit better than you're learning and playing South Korea and getting thumped 12-0. I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, let's face it, South Korea are good, but it's not like playing, I don't know, England. South Korea they're ranked 40s in the 40s. They have few good players, and they're going to look a little bit better than Morocco, but they're not amazing.
Can I just say that it's going to be nice for our boys, to face Son Heung-min from Tottenham? Wouldn't that be sweet?
Yeah, I mean, listen, like, hopefully next time they will actually field a lineup which, like, I hope the next window, like, Kyle Larin is like, okay, my team is now eliminated, I will play. You know, because I was a little disappointed by that he decided to stick around and not go to Africa for these two friendlies because, you know, Orlando had no chance of qualifying for the playoffs.
And let's get Cavallini in there this time.
I mean, I could go all day on Cavallini, but I think, honestly, I'm purely speculating, but I think in that case, it's him. I don't think he wants to play. That's just, it doesn't make any sense they would keep ignoring him. I think
he's actually expressed it before. Like, there was the coach before Floro he didn't want to play for anymore. The relationship with Floro was pretty rough in the beginning. He did end up coming back and playing like one game. But yeah, I think it's just a question of, like, you know, keeping him happy. I'm sure he'll do it. If he sees like some changes in the organization, like, he had nothing against the players or Canada itself. It was literally just the organization, the way it was being run.
Because if that's the case, I mean, there's no chance he's going to play for Uruguay. So, I mean, like, there's no dual citizenship issue here with him. It's basically make him happy, get him on board, and we need that. Like, he's one of those guys that he has, like, skill on the ball. Like, he's dangerous. We're severely lacking guys who show some like real intent on the ball for Team Canada, where you have to back off of him a little bit, you know, like, so, you know, hopefully we get him on board.
I just see his nationality here listed as Canadian Argentinian, but somehow I doubt he's going to make the Argentinian national team.
Same problem,
yeah. Well, on that note, I mean, there's always so much to talk about the Canadian men's national team, and I foresee that over the next while, if we hear a coaching hiring or potentially any other changes to the roster, things like that, we're going to talk about it more over the next few weeks, and we'll definitely cover the South Korea game when it comes up in November. How about a nice transition into the MLS? We're going to go through some of the scores and storylines over the past couple weeks. Lexi, you want to do the rundown on that?
Yeah, sure. It's been a while since we've seen any of us play after the international break. So the first games from last week go back to the Wednesday. So on Wednesday, we obviously had the Impact in action versus San Jose. A nice 3-1 win in Montreal in front of our own fans at Saputo Stadium. Sadly, DC United also beat the Columbus Crew 3-0 to keep pace with us in the standing. And that just about does it for the Wednesday games that interest us. Then moving on to the weekend matches, we had the Philadelphia Union, who lost to the New York Red Bulls, and of course we had nice Montreal Impact win 1-0 Orlando that I'm sure we'll touch briefly after, and we had once again 3-1 over Sporting Kansas City. so that keeps them in the playoff hunt. And we have surprisingly DC United that beat Toronto FC 2-1. So all the teams in the hunt for a playoff spot with Montreal are keeping pace with us. So if we take a quick look at the Eastern standings, we have in first place New York Red Bulls, second place New York City FC, third place Toronto FC, and fourth place are Montreal Impact with 44 points. 1 point behind us, DC United, 43 points. And 2 points behind us, Philadelphia Union City in sixth place. And that's where the playoff line is. And in seventh, New England Revolution, 39 points. And it's looking very skeptical for them to make the playoffs. So if we start looking forward to this weekend's games, we have the Montreal Impact facing off at a 4-1 derby versus Toronto at Saputo Stadium, which could be a big game for us. If we win, I'm not too sure. Do we clinch a playoff spot, or is it just going a long way?
We need 2 points of the last.
You guys know?
Yeah, that's right. Two points out of the last games. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Even if we beat Toronto, I'm not sure we're going to catch them in the playoff hunt, but it's always fun to beat Toronto, isn't it?
And I mean, it brings out the best of some of our players, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
This is the games that we tote and promote as the ones that you want to watch and that you want the players to show up for. And I mean, they have and haven't in the past, so it's hard to tell what team is going to be showing up.
Yeah, as long as Miles doesn't take some red card in the 44th minute, we should be good.
That's right.
We did win that game. It was a great game. For the matches that concern us in the playoff race, we have DC United facing off versus second-ranked NYCFC, so we can hopefully see them lose there. Philadelphia Union, who are behind us, are playing Orlando. Orlando, who are just eliminated from the playoffs, so we'll see how motivated they are. And finally, we have the New England Revolution playing bottom of Chicago Fire, so we can expect them to see them claim all 3 points.
I would hope so. That would definitely help us out a lot in the standings. Did anybody else catch any other games in the MLS that they wanted to chat about? I only caught the Montreal games.
Me too.
But I was following some of the other storylines. There wasn't really much to say. Did you cover did you mention that there was one game this past weekend, Lexi? There was Houston versus Colorado.
Yeah, this weekend.
Yeah.
I think Colorado beat Houston, was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Doesn't really affect us much.
No.
Two Western teams duking it out, and we also have Seattle versus Houston playing on Wednesday. Seattle's been an interesting story this year. We know that they had that abysmal start. Well, I think their worst start in history.
Mm-hmm.
They've only been in the MLS a few years, and now with new arrival Nicolas Lodeiro, they're right back in the hunt for the playoff spots. And currently, they are sitting in. Sorry, no, you're saying?
Seems like Jordan Morris has really caught fire as well.
Yeah, it's a rookie.
He's been fantastic. I don't know if you guys can remember back to when we played them earlier in the season.
The third game or something.
Yeah, I don't remember if he scored 1 goal or 2.
I think Dempsey scored the only goal.
Oh, no, Morris definitely got a goal.
Was it?
Really?
Oh.
And it was stunning. He did this sort of like running down the right-hand side, cut inside, get a nice left foot curler into the opposite post.
No, you're thinking of Harrison. You're thinking of Harrison. You're thinking of Harrison for NYCFC. Yeah, you're thinking of Harrison.
I'm gonna look it up.
Aren't you?
Just because.
Pretty sure.
Yeah,
Harrison.
It was 1-0.
I don't know, but speaking about Morris, I mean, he's looked good. Some of his goals, he plays like he's a lot older than he really is. I understand.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the season, I was thinking, oh, here we go, just hyping up another player. But I don't know, he's got positioning and vision that's definitely there.
So just to go back to the game.
Yeah.
At the start of the season between Montreal and Seattle, was 1-0 for Seattle, and Quinn Dempsey scored in the 79th minute.
Yeah,
Matt, you're thinking of that Harrison guy who's also a rookie for NYCFC. He scored a goal where he cut inside and slotted it up in the top corner.
He patched the mirror on the didn't he?
Yeah, you're probably right. I've had too much rum and Coke, obviously. I need more peanut butter. All right, well...
No, too much peanut butter, more rum and Coke.
Never. There's never such thing as too much peanut butter, okay? And anybody who knows me that's listening knows me for that. So, then now that we're sort of done with that recap, why don't we jump into the impact, okay? Well, there is a bit of a transition that we can get to with the international play. and the impact. We had a lot of our players that were called up for international play, which is definitely something that's nice to see. I think almost half the squad was called up to their national team to play over the past week and a half. But in particular, Simon.
Yes.
What a great story.
Great.
So the Belgian team changes coaches, and previously had a coach that didn't really have Simon in his mind for the future of the back line of Belgium. Now, admittedly, they are facing a couple of injuries, Vincent Kompany in particular, that'll allow us but he was called up and played almost. I think he played full time. You were saying today, 90 minutes in today's game, and then I think he played something like 70 minutes in his first match earlier this weekend, right?
Yeah, in the match. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Alex.
In the first match, I think they were playing Bosnia-Herzegovina.
Yeah.
It's actually not a bad squad. They have a fullback called Lukaku, not the striker Lukaku, but they have another fullback. There's so many Lukakus in Belgium, obviously. Anyways, he got injured in the 79th minute, and he was replaced by Laurent Simon. I sadly was not able to catch that game, but I know I watched most of their game versus Gibraltar. I mean, Gibraltar isn't much of a squad.
No.
Their Romelu Lukaku from Everton, striker, scored, I think, 6 seconds in for the fastest goal in
No, it was
Euro
Benteke.
qualifier history. Sorry, Benteke, yes. Scored 6 seconds in.
Oh, man, it was crazy. So
fastest
Simon
goal.
played both fullback?
Yeah, I think their fullbacks, normally he plays as fullback, but actually this time he played, I'm pretty sure he played as center back next to Alvarado, and he actually pushed Jan Vertonghen out to fullback, which is a position he's crazy about playing.
That's still that's a stellar back line. I mean, I adore that team. Noah, what were you gonna say?
So he played as a center back this past game against Gibraltar,
Yes.
and Vertonghen played fullback.
Yes.
Wow, that's a coach having a lot of confidence in Laurent Simon. Like that's
It was Gibraltar.
Wait, but guys,
Big
weren't they
change.
playing a 3-man backline?
I'm not
I
sure.
don't on
I
Thursday
didn't catch the
on-
starting lineups because I'm pretty sure I saw Simon more central. You guys
Yeah,
wanna?
he definitely played center, and it was a 3-man backline.
Okay.
Okay.
On
Interesting.
one
I saw-
of the games.
I definitely
I'm
saw-
not sure if it was both, but definitely one of the games it was a 3-man backline.
But I know
Either
they
way.
have
in the center.
It's nice to see that he's getting the confidence from the coach because as he's 31 now.
He's getting up there in age, actually.
I think 31, 32, yep.
Yeah.
Well,
So he's not going to have a lot of years of international play left. So if he now has the confidence of his
31.
coach and he gets a World Cup, and that's a real feather in his cap. I'm really happy for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. But as much as there's tons to say about the story, you can look it up. There's a couple articles where he's interviewed and asked questions about being called up, what it means to him. Of course, incredibly important. I'm sure he felt that his Euro performance with Belgium against Italy was going to be the last time he wore a Belgian jersey. But turns out not. And he might be seeing a lot more playing time over the next 2 years, which is fantastic for him. But let's jump back into the impact from there. We already went over a couple of the matches in the past, but let's just quickly recap. The San Jose game, we win 3-1. Orlando, we win 1-0. We eliminate Orlando, which was fantastic. But did you guys see anything in particular that was, I don't know, particularly positive? I mean, these were also games in which we didn't start Drogba, which is what we spoke about the last time as well, which was a nice change to see. It seemed to, inject a little bit more enthusiasm into the group. Mancosu, in particular, looked really strong.
Yeah.
What else did you guys see?
I mean, listen, in previous episodes of the podcasts, Ronnie and I both called our shot, and we said, listen, if this team wants to go anywhere in these last 4 games or last 5 games, whatever it was, take DDA out of the lineup, bring him in the 65th minute if you need to, or don't bring him in at all. And the minute they sat him, we had a Wednesday game against San Jose, and then we had a Sunday or Saturday game against Orlando, and both we came away with full points. We came away 6 points, 1 away, 1 at home, which is gigantic, especially with these last few games being so important to the playoff race. I mean, if Coach Biello hasn't seen that this team is better off starting without DDA at this point, I don't care about ticket sales. I don't care about any of that stuff. then I don't know what will, because it is clear now, especially to me, where I was 95% sure before, and now I'm 100% sure that this team is better off without Didier starting in the starting lineup. Do I think he's still a useful player? Absolutely. I think for sure he's still a useful player. But as a super sub, maybe in the 70th, 65th minute, if you're down a goal, bring him on, for sure. But other than that, keep him on the bench. I don't care what his name is. Keep him on the bench.
Well, we had a couple of suspensions as well, which and injuries that led to some changes in the lineup. Like we finally got to see Kyle Fisher again playing right back, I believe. Did you guys see anything you liked in that?
Yeah, actually, I wrote a bit about Kyle Fisher in my article this week. Last week's article. He was playing. I think he was playing right back. I'm not entirely sure here. I know he was playing as a fullback.
It was right back, yeah.
And they lined up Kaká in front of him. So when you're Kyle Fisher, a rookie, and you're staring down a certain Kaká, I mean, you must be pretty worried. And he didn't shut down Kaká, because I don't think there's any defenders in this league that'll totally shut down Kaká. But I know he was able to slow him down enough to be able to get help. Kaká went at him a few times, but I think he was able to slow him down enough. And for a rookie to be able to do that, I was happy with his performance.
Could you by any chance just say Kaká again?
Kaká?
Just one more time.
Kaká?
Oh yeah, it's so nice, so nice. What else did we see in the lineup? I mean, we have Lefebvre, but he's filling in because we got some injuries, right?
Suspensions.
Suspensions as well. That was Kamara and Cabrera that were missing off the back line. You want to jump into Oduro now, right?
I thought you kind of avoided.
I was trying to avoid it. I figured that this is going to probably take.
Wants to do it.
Yeah. Okay, we'll jump in. I want to preface this with something, though. For the whole season, and probably very much last season as well, there's been a lot of debate about Oduro, his consistency or lack thereof. Some people perceive him as somebody who is an absolute necessity to start every game, and therefore see him as underperforming. And then there's other people who see him much more as a role player, and therefore see him as kind of being okay, and he shows up when we need him to. Now, just on that note, I don't remember who it was who posted this on Twitter. I believe it was Martino, who's from TVA, and he listed 6 players: Venegas, Ontiveros, Ship, Bernier, Oduro, and Salazar. And he said that since July 31st, none of those guys had scored goals. Now, this doesn't include the last game where Oduro scored the winning goal against Orlando.
Nice goal.
But I'm a very nice goal, a very important goal at that. I mapped this out in Excel to see exactly how much playing time are these guys getting. Is what Martino is telling us that important that these guys haven't scored? Or perhaps have they not been given the opportunity to do so? Venegas only played 2 games, okay, with an average of 7.4 minutes. And so you understand the way that I'm doing this, I'm counting all the games he doesn't start as 0 minutes.
Yeah, fair.
Because they're potential minutes he could have played. Ontivero, 3 starts or three appearances, averaging 14 minutes. Ship, he has 5 appearances, heavy, much heavier in the month of July and August, averaging 22 minutes. Bernier, 24. Oduro, however, sticks out. He has 9 appearances in that span, averaging 28 minutes, no goal. Salazar, averaging 27 minutes. Same thing, I think 1 game less than Oduro, no goal. I just from that, as much as I love to see Oduro score, I didn't think that he should have started the last game either. But maybe we didn't have any other options. But anyways, why don't you guys give me your Oduro points? Ronnie, what were you thinking?
First of all, I love Venegas for sure. Like on paper, he's my starter. Salazar looked good a couple of games. Ontivero, he's got the talent, just doesn't seem to have everything else that goes with it. So for me, at this point in the season, what we've seen, looking at the stats and on the field, Oduro for me is a starter. I mean, until somebody else picks it up, it's got to be between him and Venegas. Ontivero just hasn't done enough to earn it. Salazar, he's still got to develop. Maybe a little time at FC Montreal will help. But it's got to be between Venegas and Oduro, and Oduro like has earned it. I mean, he's got more goals and more composure. Like he works for it. He's even improved his defensive game, and he was terrible his entire career defensively. He's like absolutely a nightmare to watch.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Venegas was the one who he scored. He came on and scored a goal against San Jose. Correct?
That's
Yeah,
right.
in the 9 minutes, 90 seconds,
Yeah.
or something.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that was after not playing for 8 games, not having an appearance in 8 games, and he came on and scored.
That's
After,
right.
of course, we did talk about, of course, him complaining a bit on Twitter about not getting an appearance, and there you go, he gets a goal.
That's right. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel that like Ontivero's gotten way too many chances this year, as well as Salazar. Don't get me wrong, I like both players, but Venegas and Oduro have earned it. It's got to be between them. Like here on out, rest of the season, it's got to be between them.
Javier, what were you going to say?
I mean, that right side in our starting 11 is one of those positions. I mean, it's probably the only position where we have so many options, yet none of them you go, yay, they're starting. It's just a heaping pile of hot flashes, is what I like to call it, because like some of them will, like Ronnie pointed out, he said Salazar's had a couple of games, Ontivero's had a couple of games, Venegas sometimes looks great. Some games he looks like he belongs, just ship him back to Costa Rica. And then you have Oduro, and Oduro's there. He's fast, you know, that's what he does. But even you say that, and then sometimes you'll watch a game and you'll see him not using his speed. It's just, to me, it doesn't matter who you stick there. You stick him there, and you hope for the best. That's what it is, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, this right-hand side has been a thing that we've been talking about, like I said, for a long time. Just before, we spoke about Fisher. Who else was on that side? Bernier. As strong as he's been playing, he's not the quickest on his feet. He potentially is not the strongest player that we can put in that position. But that right-hand side has always been the weakness. Alexi, what are your thoughts on Oduro?
Oduro, I find most of the time you kind of what you expect from Oduro is a player who's going to look to get behind the back line, and when he does look to do that, he can be a dangerous player. But I find his games when he tries to play a bit more like Piatti, try to control the ball instead of looking and trying to play off the shoulder, and then I find he becomes absolutely invisible. But as long as Oduro is offering himself as an option, I think that he deserves to be the starter. On the other hand, he went through a spell before he lost his playing time where he was playing as a player. He was trying to stay on the ball too much. He wasn't on the shoulder. He wasn't offering himself up much for runs. But I also like the point where you highlighted his defensive play, because he definitely has the hustle to make it back. So if we're ever exposed, sometimes we're playing Kamara as right back, who doesn't have the most pace. That's the next option to have Oduro who can cover for him with his pace coming back. And even though he's not the most defensively talented, he definitely has heart. One thing you can never take back at Oduro is that he doesn't play with effort. He's always pushing. I find Oduro, even if you don't like how he's playing, he always plays with effort.
Well, I mean, I was just to add on to that, the only thing that I would say I'd give Oduro, as I kind of already previously stated, I didn't think necessarily he should have started, but with his speed and movement, he doesn't act like a player that makes space. He doesn't act like a player that makes runs, that makes the back line get out of shape. I totally agree. Does he put in effort? Absolutely. But I feel like he's doing it wrong almost. He's not even playing to his strengths.
I don't know what you guys are watching, but like he's been probably the most consistent performer offensively outside of Piatti. I find Piatti kind of like, you know, he can go larger stretches and has way more talent than Oduro. I feel that, you know, and I was the guy last year who thought Oduro was just complete garbage. But this year I find that with the little talent he does have, he's making the most of it. And he has 6 goals and 6 assists this year. He probably leads the team in assists somehow. You could look it up, but 6 assists seems like a high number for the Impact. We don't score that often, I don't think. So I think he's done really well for himself. And you know, I think the problem was what someone mentioned earlier is that we have so many options. And I think Biello started to think too much. I think Oduro had a couple of games in a row in June where he didn't play great. And then he didn't play him again very often, maybe like a smattering of minutes, 20 or so every once in a while, for like a good 2 months, because they had Ontivero and Venegas and Salazar. So because they had other options, he kind of just got lost in the shuffle. And for me, he never should have stopped starting because when he's been in the lineup, they've been playing well. I think, I don't know the results exactly, but he's been very consistent on this team this year. And he opens up space for Drogba or Mancosu. And the last 2 games, Oduro has scored 2 goals, and they've won 2 games. So I think the proof is in the pudding, personally.
Well, on that note, as much as our downturn started probably earlier in July, Oduro's play at around that time is when he started becoming a substitute. So he got 24 minutes, 21 minutes, 29. He started 2 games in a row, did 77 and 67, and then he became a sub again, 20, 22, 22, sat 2 games, came on and started what did he do against San Jose?
A goal.
A goal against San Jose and then a goal against Orlando, correct?
Yeah, that goal.
That's right.
Yeah. Just to put it at that, I found that goal versus Orlando to be very nice. It was like a nice touch to go past Mendick. I was kind of sad not to see that on the goal of the week highlight reel with.
Yeah, it was a really good first touch and an excellent finish. And there was better goals that week, but yeah, I just think that I did the same thing though, right? It's like you have an idea of what a player is and what you think of him, and you don't think that he can be anything else besides that, but like it took me a while to figure out that Oduro was actually playing well this year, but now I see it. He's also giving a lot more effort than a guy like Ontivero, and Salazar is just, he doesn't really have a lot of technical ability. Oduro is actually showing me that he can stop and think with the ball this year. I don't know where it came from, but he's much better this year. That's all I can say.
Well, on that note, considering we all agree to disagree, seemingly for the most part, we can jump ahead. We're running out of time, so let's jump ahead to TFC because that's obviously something we're going to be looking forward to this weekend. The game is Sunday at 3 p.m. At home at Saputo Stadium. What do you guys foresee this weekend? What are we looking forward to?
Is Giovinco back?
We don't know yet.
No word yet, I believe. And quite frankly, I don't see why we would see him.
Because they want to beat us? I'm not sure.
But is that really that important to a team that's already made it in the playoffs?
Well, you'd embarrass them at home, and I think they're currently sitting in 3rd. Wouldn't they like to get a bye in the first round?
Yeah, you want to finish in the top 2 very badly. I think if you can.
They are 2 points out of the top 2, and we are 5 points behind them.
Yeah,
they'll want to win for sure.
And it's us.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to know. Orlando was a good test, and we kind of passed in that game because Orlando was a team that needed to win badly. And the fact that we won that game and looked pretty decent gives me a bit of hope going into this next week, this next game. I hope to see Sima ride his confidence that he's gotten from playing with Belgium, and have another really solid performance. And pretty sure they'll do the same thing. They're going to play Mancosu, Drogba on the bench, unless Drogba had an amazing week of practices, which I kind of doubt. And is everyone back?
Here's the question, Noah. Where do you put Kamara? Center back or right back?
So this last game against Orlando, was he at fullback again?
He was suspended.
He was suspended. Yeah, Kamara. Oh, because also, was anyone really high on Lefebvre, thinking he should stay as center back this coming week?
Well, what I meant
I wasn't impressed by Lefebvre.
Well, what I meant was not what we do with Kamara. I meant what does Morrow do with Kamara? Because we're pretty much all in agreement that he plays center back, right? But he's popping up at right back for Kamara.
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? You guys said earlier, I think it was Javier said earlier that I wasn't in super agreement for Mancosu to start, but it's really all about I'm just trying to think of what is Biello thinking. Of course, I think Mancosu deserved to start over Drogba because Drogba just has looked very, hasn't looked good. Mara should start at center back. I don't really think there's much thinking involved, unless you say to yourself, the fullbacks haven't played great lately. Toya hasn't looked great. Dia didn't look great. Then then yeah, it might be a bit more of a conundrum. What do you guys think?
Well, I'm not sure. Kamara, I think he's probably most useful at this point as center back. And versus a Toronto team that's going to push quite hard, I think. I see Toronto going for the 3 points here, personally. I think I'd like to see Toya at fullback to kind of solidify the back line. But also interesting now talking about Simon. If you remember last time, he was playing decently well at the start of the season, then he left for the Euro. And he wasn't really played much. He was by him to lose a lot of drive. I think these 2 games where he was started again definitely gave him some of that momentum back. And if you look at the last game, just pulling up the squad, he started in the middle of the back 3, and Meunier was actually pushed to a right wing. So can this gain some confidence with Simon, hopefully, and can he be dominant going down the stretch? Well, that'd be amazing for the Impact.
That would be great if the opposite happens, right?
Yeah.
He comes back and he's so into it. That would be. I think that is kind of what we need at this point, is the defense to hold us up. Like in that Orlando game, I feel like Orlando really came on strong and the defense held up. That's really been our problem all year. And actually, one thing we haven't talked about is Evan Bush, who
he was amazing in the last 2 years.
The last few games, he suddenly, I don't know, I hadn't really noticed it. I got to give some credit to some people on Twitter who noticed how he wasn't coming out for balls and wasn't as aggressive. But I just feel like he's really woken up these past couple of weeks and he's super aggressive. All of a sudden, or has other people thought he's been good all year?
No, I'll be honest with you. I think we had this conversation a few months back on Bush's performance, and I was saying that, quite frankly, I'm surprised that he doesn't get as much attention for being a pretty solid goalkeeper, but that has small little mistakes that are made here and there with his lack of aggression in the box on crosses, on corner kicks. We're talking about actually sometimes he seemingly had a difficulty commanding the back line, but that was not always evident. It comes and goes. He's particularly good in the air, just in the past week or two, because of 2 weeks rather, because of his performances in Orlando and San Jose, he's been getting write-ups on MLS and write-ups on TSN. There's been a lot of attention put back on him, and I think that's great to see before the playoffs.
It is. Like, I think to me, we talk so much about scoring. We talk about a lot, but we haven't really talked a lot about Evan Bush, and he's super important to the Impact going forward. If, like you're saying, if he's commanding the back line, if he's communicating well, that can make all the difference in the world. It really can, because we've conceded a lot of goals where you're watching and you're like, wow, that really could have been avoided with better communication, or just a defender just being a little bit quicker, or Bush just being a bit quicker to get out to the ball. So, yeah, that's an interesting thing going forward to pay attention to.
Yeah, I was always wondering, whether or not some of those defensive foibles that we were seeing, late in the game, about 20 minutes left, we'd start seeing the back line fall apart. Yeah. Didn't even seem to be because of fatigue. It really seemed to be out of this lack of communication of one person taking a ball carrier and not communicating that, or odd positioning choices. Not to say that Bush is 100% responsible for that. There's obviously the center backs that are heavily responsible for that, and the most experienced players in the back. But he definitely has a role to play. But I do think that we've seen an improvement.
Yeah,
jump in.
Go. I was just talking about Bush. I found he has been very good, especially in the past 2 games. And what I find with Bush, where I find he's good, he's good in the air, as we said before, and he's good with a leaping save. What has always worried me a bit about Bush is, first of all, his decision-making, when he goes out for a cross and when he doesn't. Sometimes I find that's been slightly suspect. Sometimes he's made the decision to try to make the play on a ball he shouldn't have, or sometimes he stays on his line. But I found that in his clearances, but that's another issue. And I found that his decision-making process has been better in the past 2 games. He's left what he has to for his back 4 and gone out for what he has to as well. And if you look at the game, not the most recent game versus Orlando, but the one we lost 4-1, and I think he got a red card because he made a rash tackle. He went off his line. Eventually conceded the penalty, took a red card, and that was essentially it for the game. And I don't see that Bush who's not considering everything. I think when Bush is a smart player, he can be a very good goalie.
I totally agree, and frankly, some of the saves that he made over the past 2 weeks were definitely on the saves of the week highlights by the MLS. So that's nice, getting a little feature on the website. How about, we're going to be running out of time here, so I'm just going to go around. I want to get some score predictions for this weekend against TFC. So how about we start with you, Ronnie? What do you think you're going to see this weekend?
One, we got to show aggression. We got to do the high press. Need Kamara in the middle to cover Altidore. Otherwise, Cabrera will just get run all over the place. Score. I mean, I want to be positive. I want to see a great finale to the season, but I don't know, man. I think we'd like to come out with a tie.
Noah?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I was thinking the same thing. 1-1. Kind of hoping for that. Toronto are just having a better season than us. They're more consistent with their performances. So, as much as I, and you just don't know what you're going to get with the Impact. I find, even with these last two performances, still not sure. You'll only know when the game begins, what they're all about. So, yeah, I'm going to say 1-1.
Javier?
I mean, I'm definitely more optimistic than I was 2 weeks ago on the last episode of the podcast, but I'm also a little bit realistic in terms of my expectations for this team. Like Noah said, I mean, it really all depends on the Giovinco factor. If Giovinco's there, I think we lose. If he's not there, I think we come away with a 1-1 draw, which, is a fine result for me, at least, because we do need only 2 points to wrap it up. And depending on what other teams do this weekend, as well as the Impact, they may only need a draw or maybe even stay stagnant and they qualify anyways. So you know what? I'm going to go with 1-1 as my prediction, and let's hope for the best.
What about you, Alexi?
Okay, to finish it off, I'd like to see Bernier start. Our captain has always played well, and recently has played well versus Toronto. If you think back to the 2 final games last year in the playoff and one of the last games of the regular season at home, Bernier was a great player. And I think we have a chance, because when we play Toronto, it doesn't seem to be, recent form doesn't take much into account. It seems to be a game where there's definitely emotions. And I've seen us play well versus Toronto. If you go that game in August 27th, I think, we weren't expected to win at all, and we played amazing football. I think we have a chance. I'm not going to be the one to say it here, but I think if we play well, if we start Bernier, we take our chances, we can come out with a 2-1 win. On the other hand, if they start Giovinco, things get a bit more complicated.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to follow up with that. I totally agree. If we do see Giovinco, most likely, I believe we're going to see Giovinco and Altidore both score. However, I do think that we have a chance at a 2-1 win. I like the way that the Impact lines up against Toronto. I like the way that they most of the time show up. This is a great opportunity also to do something in front of the fans that have been disappointed all summer. But I will say that the winning goal will be scored late, and it will be scored by super sub Didier Drogba. That will change our spirits. We'll start talking about him in positive tones and big smiley faces and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to give it a minute. I'm going to say the 87th minute.
Okay, and a free kick or open play?
And I will say, part of me wants to say set piece, but
it's definitely going to be a set piece.
Got to be a set piece on the left-hand side. He's going to put it in the top right corner. He's going to put it just around the wall.
What are the weather conditions going to be? Is it going
to be 4 extra minutes.
Is there going to be a 4 mile per hour wind going out of south?
Yeah, and there's going to be a 5-man wall.
Not a 4-man wall.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, because it's going to be late. It's going to be late, right?
Very interesting.
On that note, there's a couple of little details to throw out, just something that we saw today too. Mancosu didn't seem to be practicing today. Not really sure what that is. We do have a couple of players in multiple sports teams in Montreal that are coming down with the flu. And I know a lot of people that I know are coming down with the flu. I wouldn't be surprised if it's something like that. So we'll see if he's going to be included in the roster come Sunday. Thank you very much for joining us again this week on the Designated Players Podcast. I'd like to thank Alexi, Javier, Noah, and Ronnie from Mount Royal Soccer on SB Nation. Be sure to visit the page, read our articles, leave us some comments, like us on Facebook, and we'll hopefully see you next week after a TFC loss. Take care, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys.
Later, guys.